minimum.
It's too bad we couldn't find any podcasters to talk about this.
I know, right? This whole technology thing about streaming, live streaming, and internet lag. Yeah. Are there any podcasters out there that might give us advice here? Oh wow, silence is golden, guys. Good job. Well, why don't we do this? We're just
I
going
wish
to
we
kick
had
off
some in
after.
Dallas. Been great.
Well, great. Now I'm like, excited for this live broadcast here. So let's kick off after GLO. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Afterglow Live Recap Podcast. My name is Sia.
And I'm Erin Greger.
And we are the co-hosts. And we're also the Dallas co-chairs of Global Leaders Organization. And we are the co-founders of Innovation Media Enterprises, a kick booty boutique strategy and podcast production agency. And why am I saying it that way? Because, well, why not self-promote? But on top of that, this week's speaker at Global Leaders Organization Business Acceleration 2.0 series, we welcomed a gentleman named Travis Chappell. Travis Chappell is a podcaster, and he is a huge, I guess, for lack of a better term, pundit for the industry. And I thought it was fascinating to hear from another individual, not just myself, talking into an echo chamber. And of course, because I love echo chambers, we had to bring back on two very awesome, familiar guests, Jonas Bull and Jonathan Anderson, fellow Dallas chapter members. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. And of course, you guys are the co-hosts of the Noonish Podcast. And because of your exemplary expertise on all things podcasting, just had to have you back, guys. So thanks.
You're absolutely welcome.
I could not turn down this opportunity to come back on this amazing Afterglow show. I love it.
Okay, guys, so let's jump right into it because I think we're going to be going overtime for sure. Travis Chappell was talking about the reasons why you should have a podcast, both either professionally or personal branding wise. And he gave some, some interesting insights and tidbits. So who wants to jump in first and give me an assessment of the conversation?
Well, here's what I want to say of the caveat to the presentation, because he talked a lot about finding big guests. And that's been his play, right? Like he gets the big guests, he's built this up, and then he teaches like masterminding of podcasting, all this stuff. And yeah, you need those big guests to get it. There are a lot of questions about that. And I feel like people, a lot of times they feel they need those big guests in order to be successful. And it's just simply not true. It is all about your audience. It is all about what your podcast is about. It's so important to understand that, where I feel like a lot of people get defeated. Well, I don't know, X name or whatever. You don't need to know X name. You can have so much success and make money if that's what your goal is, through your business. However, it's not a one size fits all formula. And I felt like and I'm not saying he said this, it just was kind of the feel of the presentation. Like, you have to go get the big guests. This is how you get them. This is how you leverage it, yada, yada, yada. And there's 50 different ways you can approach it.
I'm inclined to agree. I worry about that. If I do a podcast, I must get a top-notch, celebrity in order to be successful. And we know that's not necessarily true. Or do you disagree with us?
No, I agree with y'all. I mean, we've had some pretty well-known, celebrities and athletes on our show, and we're still going through the same struggles that everyone else goes through. Just because you have a big name doesn't mean you're going to get a big crowd or a big audience, right? So it still takes all the necessary steps. There's no shortcuts in growing your audience, right? So I think there's a lot of value in making sure that you have, great content, number one, and then, good marketing and everything else that it takes to produce a solid podcast show.
Now, he did say repeatedly that the secret to success is consistent quality content over time. And I 100% agree with that. But I feel like that's sort of fundamental. Like that's like if you're going to play basketball, you need to be able to dribble. But as far as guests, because like Jonathan said, we've had some pretty big names on Noonish, and that's sort of, talking to the athletes and the professionals is sort of the gig there. But we still have to fight to get traction. So it's not like that just magically solves your problem. And I think that very much depends on what kind of show you're doing. If you're like you guys support a podcast about cybersecurity. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. The ransomware battleground. Shout out to Ransomware Battleground. But like you wouldn't want a random celebrity on that show just talking about whatever they're doing. You need somebody who's an expert on a particular aspect of ransomware on there, or responses to ransomware, or something, cybersecurity, because that's your audience. So it's not so much about the big name so much as it is the right authority or the right voice for the audience that you're aiming for.
Yeah. So I talked to somebody yesterday. I thought this was the coolest story. He started his podcast in 2013. He was working for a company. He was also in cybersecurity. He would just record on his way in between, like going between a client site or something. And he would do it was 10 minutes on his phone. Here's what's going on in the cybersecurity world, or here's a tool I just worked with. Something super simple. No guests, no nothing. 2013, he started this. 2017, lost his dream job and announced on his podcast, I'm going to start my own gig. From the podcast, that is his number one, still doing it today, 2021. That is his number one lead generator. Now he does have guests. But it's not big names. It's not, it's people in the cybersecurity world. It's nothing, but that one podcast launched his business. And as soon as he said it, people were reaching out to him. Hey, I listened to your podcast. I want, we need this in our company. Can you help us? It's not a sexy topic. He doesn't have sexy guests, and it's his number one lead generator of his business.
Let's take a step back here, kids. Cybersecurity is sexy, and I could talk about it all day long, because you know why? Those mofos. I went off on a thing. I railed on Wednesday, you guys, on the other live stream I do. The mic is listening, because as we are all content creators, and I'm going to say it one more time just to remind people, because it's frightening. When we're creating content like this, people are creating websites, right, to have a landing page so their content can be found easier, or if they're trying to grow their personal brand or their professional brand, these websites are existing. Well, what's happening is we're getting spoofed. And if you are not taking, or you're not aware of the proper precautions that you need to take as a person that's got content out there on the internet, you're going to be victimized at some point. If not you, someone else is going to leverage your data to victimize someone else. And so that particular individual's website and podcast got spoofed. So there was a fake website that was created, and it was bull content on there, just had the individual's name. They double clicked it, didn't realize what's going on. Thank goodness it was just like a clickbait issue, and not necessarily a straight up phishing issue where they make you change your login and password and all that stuff. But we have to be aware of that as content creators as well. So sorry, cybersecurity is sexy to me, because I know of every single old person. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Elder in my circle has gotten taken. Thousands of dollars have been taken, and that's if think about that $1 billion industry these a-holes are making. So sorry, cybersecurity is sexy, damn it.
Yeah, and with podcasts, it's more so, whoever is tuning into a podcast, they're going there first for a reason, right? Some of it's for entertainment, but a lot of these podcasts, like, people are interested in these topics that they're listening to. So I can say for a fact, I know we do a sports and tech show, but two of our most popular shows, one was blockchain. We had a blockchain expert on by the name of Omar Saeed, and we had Miss Paula Sabine, who was cybersecurity and digital ethics. And people want to know about these topics, right? Because they're a huge part of our lives right now, right? And there's just so much unknown about them, right? So when you bring these topics and you market it properly, like, I think they draw huge audiences. So yeah, I think they are sexy topics.
Well, and like he mentioned yesterday, I thought it was a really great point. I can't remember the numbers. I should have written them down, but podcast listeners are listening to learn. Like, obviously
Yes.
there is the entertainment perspective, but it's a very highly educated group of consumers because they are listening to learn. And so I think that's important, that even if it's not a comedy podcast or, you know, God bless Joe Rogan, because that's, you know, the end all be all, but it doesn't have to be that for you to have success.
Absolutely. So I find it very interesting that the top two popular themes for podcasting is the true crime is huge. Like, so Serial really blew up the format and, you know, the name podcast, right, to help us propel into the more mainstream. And then the religious themed podcasts, and both of them seek enlightenment in a different way, right? So the crime stories is they are getting educated on a crime and the situation. I've said this before. If you can tie back whatever your content you're creating with emotion that the audience can relate to, it's going to have the stickiness factor to it. And I think that's where that edutainment comes into play. Is the most successful podcasters are the ones that have that innate ability, or they work very hard at it purposely to get that emotional tie to reel you in, to want to hear more, to question it. Maybe even if it's laughter, anger, you know, thoughtfulness, something like that will trigger stuff in the brain to, you know, the synapses fire and then connect. And then all of a sudden you've now got a memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think we've had, you know, so I've just started another podcast with Jonathan, was my very, very first guest, called Education is Painful. But on that show, as we recorded that on Noonish, being a guest on your podcast and other podcasts, I think some of the things that really stand out, some of the things that trigger that are when in the middle of, you know, what could otherwise be kind of a blah discussion maybe, or this just lighthearted or whatever, when there's that moment of vulnerability, a moment of clarity that somebody gives you into their mind, into their soul, that those are the moments that stick with people and give you something to cling on to. And I, you know, one of the things that he said yesterday, but so by Travis's definition of podcast, what we're doing right now would not be a podcast.
No.
This would be,
and I want to,
something
that's
else.
a good question for you to clarify that.
Yeah. So he considers a podcast to be a long form audio, primarily audio thing, like what you would get from Apple Podcasts. And so, you know, we like Noonish is not, by that definition, is not a podcast, but yet, you know, we think of it as a podcast. We think of it as a different type of media than what traditional media is. You know, I had a guest on with Education is Painful, who worked in radio broadcasting, and that, you know, we discussed a little bit about what the difference was between what we were doing today and what they were doing then, and it's a very different medium. The format is different, the way that you approach topics is different, the way you get guests is different, and I think there's a range there between shows like live shows like this, which are time boxed and very, you know, have to be a little bit higher energy, through live shows that are longer form and with a, you know, a little bit more format and a little bit more of like intensity of production, like Noonish. We spend a lot of time working on trying to get things just right, but it's still live and anything can happen.
Oh,
Anything
yeah.
at all can happen, and then down to the
experienced.
recorded media, you know, with audio. But to my mind, all of that could be considered, you know, it may not be a strictly speaking a podcast in the old RSS feed form, but at the same time, it is something that I think they fall onto a spectrum there that of I hate to say new media, but where we're giving a different group of people a voice, where anybody can find a voice.
Right.
For sure. And what I appreciate, and kind of what Jonas was hitting on, I want to go back to it a little bit, that that story, right? Here at Noonish, I mean, the reason why I personally wanted to get into this is because of the things that I went through in the transition from sports to the business world, and my feeling of loneliness, and the way, you know, come to find out, I'm not the only one that felt that way, right? Military, when they leave the military, a lot of veterans, they have that same feeling. They're so used to, you know, having this organized way of life for so long, and then when they get out of the military, it's completely they're on their own, right? Completely different life, and unfortunately, a lot of them don't make that transition, right? Athletes or military, as smoothly as some. So, you know, being able to provide an outlet for these people, for these, you know, celebrities you would never know had these feelings of, you know, or thoughts, right? And allow them to come on and tell that story. I think it's a ton of value in that, and I think it's very entertaining. Yeah, I wanted to hit back on that point, because it's the sports and technology is what everybody knows. Those are the buzzwords, but the true value of the show is in the connection, right? And you know, humanizing these individuals, right? So, and being able to tell the story so others can draw in and draw from that.
Yeah, that this depression that you go through, or this happiness that you go through, or this struggle that you go through, at, you know, at the level of, you know, somebody who's a huge influence in the hip hop world, or somebody who's a huge influence in the football world, or baseball, or whatever, those same struggles that you feel in your day-to-day life, like they've dealt with that too, sometimes on grand scale and sometimes in small ways, but, you know, it's making that human connection so that we can all see that we can all benefit from that.
So, I mean, what you're kind of like articulating is that, though, I think you're saying there's some level of vulnerability that you have allowed yourself to expose a little bit in your transition, your experiences as a podcast host. Here's a question. Do you feel like as a podcast host, you have to be vulnerable, or can you be a bit of more reserved? Do you have to be exposing yourself in a way that, you know, it reflects any level of vulnerability or opening up of yourself?
I think it depends on the
I
podcast.
try my best to stay with her.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
What's that, Aaron? No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I think it depends. I mean, I'm thinking of my friend Gary Leland's 4-minute Bitcoin podcast. He's not going to be like, it's 4-minute news of Bitcoin. Like, he's not going to sit there and be like, today, you know, and create this, you know, vulnerable moment. Like, it's very straightforward. Or, you know,
I made $1 million today.
Exactly. Like, that's not even news. But yeah, I mean, but I think too, there is a perspective, and actually the same guy I talked to yesterday, we were talking about this. Like, I think even if it's, you're trying to be too buttoned up, you know, it can hurt you. I think there is something to share, you know, showing your silly side, if that's what you want to be, or, you know, sharing stories of what's going on, or that vulnerable, you know, hey, yeah, I went through this too, like, and it sucked. And maybe that does help you build that technology company, because you're coming from the sports world and you're second guessing, like, who the hell am I to build this company, or what the hell do I know? All I did was, you know, the past 10 years, this is who I've been. And I think it can pay off, but I do think it's a big, it depends.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
we know we both have something to say.
Oh, we always do.
The thing is, and for a lot of people who maybe have thought about this, or have listened to a podcast or watched a live show and thought, you know, I should do that, and then backed out of it. Anytime you're putting any kind of content out there, anything that has your name associated with it or your face associated with it, there's a risk, and there's a certain amount of vulnerability that you're letting yourself in for. And as Aaron alluded to, the longer your show is, the more you're speaking, the more personal it is, the less, you know, just news it is, the more vulnerable it's going to be. whether that's deep emotional vulnerability or just the fact that you're putting an opinion out there in the world, you're putting your face out there in the world. There is a certain amount of vulnerability to that. But what I would say to the people who maybe are considering that is, that's where the value is. That's where the good stuff happens, is when you open yourself up to the world to be criticized. I mean, there's a lot of people who could have a lot of bad things to say about you, but that's not don't worry about them. There's so much better stuff out there for you if you can be heard.
Be human to some degree, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's shift a little bit, you guys, because I don't want to beat a dead horse on there. So let's talk about how to market it, because I think that was a lot of questions that popped up, is like, okay, so what? I put content out there. How do I get seen? So he had made some comments about, well, you got to do the you have to do the social media game, as in do the tagging, post, communicate, build your community. But one thing that really stood out to me, and it was like the first thing he mentioned, and I was actually happy he said it, was don't stress about the numbers. When you're first starting out, don't do what I do if you're trying to lose weight and weigh yourself every 15 minutes thinking, hey, I didn't eat that chocolate bar, so therefore I should have lost 5 pounds, right? So did you guys find yourself in the very beginning of when you first launched your podcast, if you can remember way back when, did you fall into that trap of clicking of how many downloads have I gotten? And did you care?
I cared, yes. So we were, again, asked backwards, right? So we didn't know what we were doing. So we kind of started out on YouTube and Facebook. Like there was no downloading anything, right? It was, we shoot you the link and we see how many viewers we had, right? And then over time, I think around December, January, we finally got onto the audio side of it and went on to Spotify and Apple. But yes, I absolutely find myself, at least twice a week checking stats, right? I'm trying to figure out, what shows are the most popular, right? And I've been surprised. Some of the shows that I thought would, be big hits. We've got other shows, like I mentioned, the blockchain and the digital ethics show. Those were some of our biggest, listened to, most watched shows. So, I do find myself checking stats off. I'm a very competitive person. So, I'm just that. I feel like that shows me that I need to get better at something. Maybe marketing. I don't know what it is, but it's a problem. It's an issue. Like I need to go to counseling about that.
Well, thinking about the because we were very conscious of how many views we were getting there at the beginning, and we're kind of a little bit better now, but. Talking about the range of what constitutes a podcast. I've been doing, as you guys know, I've been doing these little 1-minute videos a couple of times a week. That I didn't even think about that as being a podcast or even content, really. And for the longest time, it seemed, it's like one view. 0 likes, no views.
Hey, I like your post, damn it. But you know what? If you ever thought about it, you could actually compile all that audio.
I probably could. It would be really
into almost like a calendar, like wisdom of the day 21 or whatever you want to do. I mean, you could do it.
Like bathroom snippets.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the thing
don't
is,
underestimate that.
I had a guy who I work with, an associate, who, and I say I work with, like, we sort of know each other professionally. He's a great guy, but we don't like talk all the time. Or I didn't know he was paying attention to any of that stuff, and he just happened to mention after a business call, me and the guys here at his office or whatever enjoy watching those, and it's very motivational. I'm like, man, that, like, I don't care how many likes I get or comments, I'd much rather have somebody tell me that, because that's
absolutely.
I mean, I would much rather, help somebody feel motivated, help somebody get through their day, or, get past a tough spot. To me, that's way better than 1,000 likes or views or whatever.
Why you do
And,
it?
and here's the other thing. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's important too to understand so many times the squeaky wheel wins, right? And it's not a matter of I mean, I would just always focus on great content first. But to your point, Jonas, it doesn't have to be that they're sitting and listening to that hour-long episode you guys are doing, and that's okay. But the fact that they're seeing you on LinkedIn, the fact that they see your minute-long videos, the minute they see that, it may not be, I'm going to sit, and the only way I consider this a success if each of these people sit and watch every single one all the way through, but they're seeing you, and they're seeing you do stuff, and they're seeing you, and it may not be that they need you tomorrow or they need you next month. But when they do need you, you're going to be the one that comes top of mind because they've seen your stuff popping up, and they watch one here, they watch one there. I mean, my favorite content in the whole wide world, I don't get to every single episode. I just don't. I'll go pick and choose because I don't have time for every single episode, but it doesn't mean I don't love them and I'm not a fan.
Oh, Aaron, you nailed it. I was at a gathering fairly recently, and I had not seen a lot of these individuals in close to 5-6 years, and every single one, which for my ego, it was just like blowing up, which you guys know is dangerous. They all said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I don't have it. I don't know. I don't do the social media likes, downloads, or whatever. But I see you all the time, and it's really impressive." And they actually said, "How do I do this for myself? Or how can I, and I've been talking about this. I'm a corporate employee. I can't really put myself out there as freely as I'd like to, kind of thing." And we had some really thoughtful conversation. And that's the whole point of it, though, right? Is if you're looking to do brand recognition or grow credibility, a lot of podcasting is establishing credibility. Because if you want to be an authority on a particular topic, that's how people get to know you. And as we all know this, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And that's probably one of the biggest things I think is a metric of success. It's a little intangible, but it's a long-term game. You keep putting stuff out there, you're gonna be top of mind.
There's one other thing that Travis mentioned that I just, before we run completely out of time, he mentioned that a lot of people think that because podcasting has been around for a while that it's saturated, and he obviously disagreed with that assessment pretty strongly, and I do too. Not because there's not plenty of podcasts out there, because there are, but because it's still not everybody's doing it. And again, if it's something that you're considering, whether it's for personal reasons or for business reasons or whatever purpose, just consider this: 9 out of 10 people that are 90 out of 100 people that are never going to do a podcast. They're never going to put content out there that's personal to them, that matters to them, whether it's business or private or whatever. But most people are never going to get their message out there. So if you're doing it, you're already ahead of the game.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Quite frankly, I just love talking sports and about things. So, just being able to share my viewpoint, it's gratifying for me. I love it. And then also the other messages that come across through the guests and through Jonas and Mark. I mean, like Jonas said, if it just reaches one and it changes someone's lives or brings someone in and let them know they're not alone, it was worth it. Right? So, love it.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, enjoy it, but to the numbers saying it doesn't, for example, I wanted to write a book and I'm like, okay, well, I need stories to write this book. So I need to find the people to tell the stories, and I need to have conversations with them to get the stories out. So I may as well just record a podcast. I mean, that's kind of and it's like, all right, I'll just record this and then I'll have this content as a way to promote. And it, again, any downloads I get on it, it's just pure bonus because I would have had these conversations anyway. I would have needed the book. So it's, again, it's not a one size fits all. It has to be this. I have to get downloads. It has, like, there's just so many ways. And to your point, Jonathan, you need content. Would you rather talk and hang out and have great conversations with people? And that's your content. Like, wow, that's a great plan versus,
exactly.
you know, I mean, might as well.
Well, this is a stat I've always used is there's over 75 million or billion books have been published since the beginning of documented time. People are still writing books today.
Yeah.
So there's no saturation of authors. So, and then he said there's only 2 million podcasts out there. And of those 2 million podcasts, maybe 800,000 are actually active. So this is a very rich opportunity for everyone. And the way I also view this too is podcasts are a digital audio format to create your own legacy. And as I've already told us to everybody else in the past is, you know, over time, outside of having your children be your legacy, not many people are going to remember who you are, what you thought about, what your personality is like, how you blink and all that stuff. And creating this type of content does create that legacy as well. So that's just another way of giving a gift of who you are to your next generations or your friends and family or whatever have you. So that's my 2 cents on that. So guys, I hate to do this because we are overtime again as usual. So Aaron, let's talk about GLO.
Yeah. So all of this, what we're discussing today is part of the Business Acceleration 2.0 series. You can join us every Thursday. And then like we had the extra VIP session for all the premium members where we could go and had 15 extra minutes of Q&A with all of the speakers. So we'd love to have you be a premium member. All of us are part of the Dallas chapter. We just started doing live events. We're going to have our next live event August 25th. So that will be free to premium members. So we'd love to have you join us. So head over to withglo, GLO.com to check out more and sign up.
And the August 25th event is going to be themed as a taste of forum. And what this is about is think about if you can have your own executive board of directors that you develop lifetime relationships with, where you can talk about your business, get some guidance on their experiences and see how you can apply it to your own. But also it really does dig deeper. So it's not just a mastermind. A forum is something that most executives have had the experience with over time. So check it out. And if you sign up as a premium member, you actually get access to a forum as part of your membership package. Last but not least, next week is Matt McWilliams. He is joining next Thursday. He is going to be talking about the surprising benefits of affiliate marketing. And funny thing, you guys, he too has a podcast called The Affiliate Guy. So look at that, guys. Fancy that. The speakers, you're starting to see a theme here. They all have a podcast. Just throwing it out there. And one last super final thing, because Aaron, I'm kind of digging it. Aaron does have a foster. She is a foster person. And please adopt. Ask Aaron about her current foster. What's his name, Aaron?
Bruce.
He is a cutie patootie. But you guys, what did you say, Aaron? We are at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're at capacity and they're starting to euthanize again.
So basically what happened is everybody who got a COVID puppy is taking their puppies back. So they're not useful to them anymore and they have to go back to work. So my PSA is your dog is fine sitting in a crate while you're at work or fine sitting at home while you're at work. I know you don't feel like you have time for them, but they're okay. I promise you. And go adopt, because Fort Worth is at 140% capacity. Dallas Animal Services, they're all euthanizing for the first time in a long time because they just can't handle all the dogs that are coming in. So I have one, usually a puppy. They go like that. And the rescue I'm working with, we have like 50 puppies and it's all kind of been at a standstill. So who knows, Bruce may be permanent at some point, but for now he's still up for adoption.
You said the other day, Aaron, that COVID puppy or kitten or whatever would much rather be waiting for you to get home than be sitting in a cage at the shelter.
Yes.
Or dead.
Yeah. Or dead. I mean, please don't take them. Like, please, I'm begging you. I know a lot of people get that. Well, I don't have time. It's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. I know you don't think you have time, but I promise you, like, especially as the old dog gets older, they don't need that much. Like my dogs sleep all day. So
Oh, to be a dog.
Sure.
Okay, so on a more positive note, guys, if there's any questions whatsoever about podcasting, obviously topic near and dear to all four of our hearts, by all means, you can hit all of us up. And Aaron, if there's any other parting thoughts that you might have.
No, start your podcast.
Exactly.
That's it.
So on that note, everyone hit up the Noonish Podcast. Education is Painful Podcast. Afterglow. I mean, goodness, guys, that's what the Mike is Listening show is about on Wednesday live streams, to talk about these other amazing podcasts. So everyone have a great, wonderful week. We shall see you next week on the Afterglow Live Recap Podcast.